a 60-year-old man who relies on medicine to stay alive every day. He is actually a top assassin with a bounty of 7.6 billion. The number of people who have died under his hands is countless. Even the world's top mercenary teams. They are all terrified when facing this old man. He started learning how to assemble firearms at the age of 10. While other kids were playing with mud, he was learning how to use knives every day for 365 days. While others were naive and falling in love early in their youth, he was studying espionage until his ears bled. He once plotted to assassinate a high-ranking official in Russia. He has also been to Afghanistan to battle with the Grim Reaper. However, it is this renowned man who dedicated himself to an H group. He was abandoned by the newly appointed young master simply because he was old and suffering from cancer. They claimed that old things should be scrapped. Upon hearing this, Brian decided to retire. But he stumbled upon something by chance. He unexpectedly reverted from old age to his 20s. Just 3 months ago, Brian was running a bookstore. He was living a relatively calm life. He follows the doctor's advice to take various anti-cancer drugs every day. He dedicated 50 years of his youth to the company and has no regrets. It's just that he has lived more than half a lifetime. He regrets never having a photo of himself. But today, a high school girl arrived, and she broke the tranquility. The girl claimed that she came to buy textbooks. She needs to purchase review materials for the 3rd year of high school. When Brian turned around to search for it, the girl had already taken out a sharp blade, ready to attack him. But Brian's words caught the girl off guard. "I've been doing the dirty work of killers for 50 years. How could I not smell the blood on the dagger?" They just had a brief encounter. His sharp gaze instantly made the girl realize the one who was going to die was not him, but herself. Suddenly, Brian swiftly appeared in front of the girl. But the reason he did so was not to kill her. Because 2 assassins appeared on the bookshelf. It turned out they were part of the organized assassination mission. There will be a plan B regardless of the success of the original plan. They will even eliminate those who fail the assassination. He turned his head and then realized the girl had already been taken as a hostage by the 2 men. He turned his head and then realized only to see a tall man in a windbreaker walking towards them slowly. He had an octopus tattoo on his head, the color of marine toxins, and it said that he was the #1 person in jiu-jitsu. "My only purpose in coming here is that the boss is feeling extremely uncomfortable. There are tens of thousands of people staring at your head, simply because your bounty is as high as 7.6 billion. Please make sure to die by my hands. This money will let me live carefree for a while." After they recovered from their shock, Brian had already disappeared without a trace. He escaped to a park. Even a powerful and influential figure from the past cannot resist cancer. He recalled various things from the past. He dedicated 50 years of his youth to the company, never aspiring for any wealth or glory. But they ruthlessly put an end to the dying. He was unwilling to accept it. And the money in his own bank account must be absolutely protected. Because that is the inheritance left for his most beloved person. But he is still lying in the rain. At the same time, 2 younger brothers are discussing the deeds of this legendary figure. They couldn't rack their brains to imagine how powerful this person could be to become a god in everyone's mouth. Suddenly, a sound interrupted them. "That was the first photo I took. Not bad," he said. "I don't know what happened. After waking up, this body seems to be full of vitality." Braided Man went up to persuade the man. "This place is not somewhere you can just come in casually." "But you managed to get in. Then don't leave." His fist was easily caught. Braided Man picked up a kitchen knife. The man, however, calmly said, "Assassins are divided into 3 levels. 3rd-rate assassins play with knives. It's simple and efficient. 2nd-rate assassins are physically fit, proficient in boxing and leg techniques. 1st-rate assassins, on the other hand, believe that everything in the world can be used as a weapon. watching a man holding Octopus Man's leg as if it were a weapon. He feels extremely humiliated. He rushed up without hesitation. The man slowly picked up that photo. Not bad. But it's really a pity. That person is already dead. But now, the new Brian rises again. No need to come find me. I will come find you. And the first thing he did after turning back into a young man was to check his physical condition in the mirror. Because at that time, he was saving a high school girl. His own abdomen had also been shot. And now the wound on his belly has long healed. The cancer cells that were devouring his own life have also disappeared without a trace. Even this young body now retained the experience and skills from a 50-year career as a killer. And they may never find the old Brian they are looking for in their entire lifetime. And the young Brian at present is completely ignored. He can make use of his young body to do anything he wants. At that moment, even though there was a no smoking sign clearly displayed in the bathroom, the two people were still smoking. Brian just stepped forward and said a few words persuasively. They were met with a slap in the face as soon as he approached. He was told to get lost as far as possible. But Brian chose not to resort to violence. He first walked to the door of the restroom and asked the rest of the people to leave. And he locked the door from the inside. He had just regained his youthful appearance and didn't want to show off too much. Although he is a young man of 20 now, deep down he still has the heart of a 60-year-old. He wants to let these two people know what consequences there will be for disrespecting their elders. This man also doesn't want to listen to his nonsense, all the gibberish and disrespect towards the elders. Brian threw a lightning-speed punch. However, this punch still concealed a fatal move that was hard to see. When he realized it, the man's throat had already caved in. At the same time as the right fist strikes out, the left hand attacks the opponent's weak spot at the fastest speed. In just an instant, the man has already fallen down. The person beside them is still staring blankly, raising a blade. He did not know who he was facing. The moment the thought of striking arose, he had to face the top-tier assassin. He still deludedly believed that he had a weapon, giving him a slight chance of winning. However, he was struck down with a fatal blow. He hadn't reacted yet. The switchblade was in Brian's hand. A sharp pain shot through his neck. He anxiously asked, "Who are you?" Brian just sneered. Brian then stepped forward and grabbed his shoulder. "Do not inquire about the affairs of the martial world," he said. "If you find out who I am, you won't leave here alive." In the face of Brian's cold oppression, he was so frightened that he couldn't make a sound. His pants were already soaked with urine. Brian had already changed into men's clothing. Not to mention, they fit exceptionally well. But at this moment, he started to feel anxious. Because it showed on his phone that the money in his bank account had been looted clean. It was the reward he had earned from 50 years of being a killer. It was a huge inheritance left for his loved ones. He had warned them. This money was absolutely not to be touched. But suddenly the conversation behind him interrupted his thoughts. They had received the scholarship from Glory Group. He thought back to his own past. He also grew up in Glory Orphanage. 50 years have passed. Glory Orphanage operates under the guise of taking care of orphans. It has transformed itself into Glory Group, which is now a top business empire. It even holds absolute political influence. Although this is the company he nurtured, he now has to slowly dismantle this business empire piece by piece. On the other side, Octopus Man took the girl to a place. They arrived at an old factory. On the surface, it was a pork slaughterhouse, but in reality, it was a base for selling intelligence. But this underworld boss is not willing to simply give him the clue. Because this intelligence is worth 7.6 billion. It won't work without enough bargaining chips. Temporary raising the stakes is not a friendly cooperation. However, Octopus Man is not someone to be trifled with. After all, he is one of the 12 disciples of the Glory Group. He is also a well-known figure in the industry. He won't be easily intimidated by him. Seeing this situation, He felt that being soft was ineffective, so he had to use a tough approach. Suddenly, four burly big men instantly surrounded him. They were fierce Western mercenaries. If you want to play dirty tricks, you must be prepared to use some brute force. Just when they were slow to react, the big men quickly surged forward. However, it took only 2.5 minutes. He was so scared that he sat on the ground shivering. A big man who was about 2 meters tall was taken down so easily. And what a creepy posture. Twisted all over like a real octopus man. His head stared straight at me with a 180-degree rotation. It seems that those few people didn't need to distract his attention at all. Not long after, they returned to the headquarters base. Octopus Man knew that a wanted order would soon be issued against the base. When more people start looking for Brian, he hopes the girl can go look for his whereabouts. But the girl recalls the scene where Brian saved her, and she inexplicably changed her thoughts about him. However, she had to agree to Octopus Man's words. Suddenly, the waiter told them a strange piece of news. The VIP restaurant branch. Logically at this moment today, they absolutely should not receive outside guests. And this person is none other than Brian, who has regained his youthful appearance. Ultimately, it boils down to the fact that the 7.6 billion blood money in his bank account was completely looted. And when he heard about the 7.6 billion, Octopus Man first smiled faintly. He then showed a sinister expression and ordered the waiter to close the door immediately. He was very curious. How did this young man know about Brian's business? Could it be that he is Brian's son? But from what I remember, he has always been alone. But for now, if he doesn't explain clearly, there is no way he will be allowed to leave here alive. Octopus Man raised 2 fingers. You have 2 choices. One is to tell me why you know Brian and disclose his whereabouts. Then you can leave. The second option is to die from a gunshot to the head due to resistance. But Brian said there is a third option. However, anyone who hears it must die. Because I am Brian. Octopus Man feels like he's being mocked. What is this silly boy talking about? He never trusted the 60-year-old man. Turned out he could become a young guy. He claimed that if he didn't tell the truth, he would have to taste the flavor of bullets. Brian is so confused. He said he would kill himself if he didn't speak up, but now that he did, no one believes him. If that's the case, you can try killing me. If you can do it. The waiter immediately raised the gun in his hand. However, the bullets had not been fired yet. A beam of light pierced through his neck. And that faint light was the chopsticks in Brian's hand. The girl looked at the waiter who fell on the ground. This technique is extremely precise, piercing the artery without missing a hair. And his way of action is extremely bizarre. Ordinary people can't see when he made his move at all. And he looked to be about the same age as himself. However, this move also piqued Octopus Man's interest. These skills are indeed impressive. However, you still have to die. Only to see a few wisps of green smoke rising from the round table. A fresh red liquid slowly flowed out from underground. It was only when Octopus Man arrived at the table that he discovered it. The red liquid underground turned out to be just chili oil. He had not actually seen where Brian had gone. Just as he was searching for Brian's trace. Suddenly, he appeared above the pillar. There was something bulging in his mouth. His entire set of movements was seamless, like flowing clouds in water. Octopus Man fell down without even offering any resistance. He sighed as he watched Octopus Man fall. There seemed to be a hint of pity in his heart. Suddenly, Octopus Man's pupils dilated. He grabbed Brian's foot. He used a series of combo moves to entangle Brian. He used his body's absolute flexibility to control his opponent, locking the opponent's key joints until they snapped. He will tighten more and more, either suffocating to death, or bones will break and die. But the next second, he directly stunned. Brian stood in front of him as if nothing had happened. But what he was holding back was the waiter's dead body. It turns out that the chili oil sprayed on his face caused his vision to decline. and he was a little dazed from being hit by a series of moves. At this moment, he clearly understood. After so many years in the assassin industry, this man's skill level. He is definitely above the 12 disciples of the Glory Group. Killing himself would be as simple as crushing an ant. Octopus Man pleaded anxiously. He wanted to make a deal with Brian. Grabbing the girl, he said, "You can take her away. Whatever you want her to do, she will obey. She's very obedient and very young." And with that, Octopus Man quickly distanced himself from the man. But this move sent a shiver down his spine inexplicably. The greatest threat in battle is having your back turned to the enemy. He was stunned when he heard this. It was a very familiar saying. So, Octopus Man had a mentor who taught him when he was young. The mentor trained him to become a candidate for the 12 disciples. He reprimanded himself at that time. In a battle of all or nothing, you must leave no room for error, and never turn your back on your enemy. And now he recalls it. The attitude and expression of the mentor's words. He turned out to be exactly like this teenager. A combination move and Brian will solve him. Not long after, on top of a tall building, a man was reporting his work. Octopus Man is dead. All surveillance videos there have been deleted. There is not a trace left at the scene. Things are starting to get interesting. Inform all members of the Glory Group. I will use these 7.6 billion as a reward. An hour later, a comprehensive hunt for Brian begins. He is a top-notch assassin. After perfectly disposing of several bodies, he arrived on the main street. But the people on the street all looked up. Because on every high-rise billboard and sign, they were all covered with missing person posters for Brian. Even the leaflets handed out by the staff. Those are all his wanted posters as well. And this is the worldwide manhunt order issued by the Glory Group. Brian faced all this without any panic. Because at this moment, he is seeking revenge with a brand new identity. But now he is alone. There are many things that require assistance. He thought of one person. Although those pets raised by the person, as well as some behaviors, made him uncomfortable. Then he came to a public toilet. Here are all homeless people. However, there is a hidden secret compartment here. He could barely find and press it with the help of moonlight. After the door opened, there was a passage leading to the basement. Below is a magnificent room. The luxurious scene here is completely different from the rooftop. Suddenly, he was threatened by a woman with a spike against his throat, as well as her German shepherd. It turns out the woman is blind, even though her eyes can't see anything. But her nose is exceptionally sensitive. She can clearly smell that this is a young person. There is no smell of alcohol on him. She can also confirm that he is not a homeless person here. Most importantly, he exudes a strong desire for blood. Suddenly, they exchanged a few moves. Brian didn't want to fight with her. He just wanted her to calm down first. The woman thought he was a killer from the Glory team. But at this moment, his bloodthirsty desire disappeared without a trace. Just then, a dog suddenly rushed up from the side. But what happened next left the woman dumbfounded. A German shepherd breed known for its absolute wariness towards strangers. However, it unexpectedly acted playfully towards a young man it had never met before. After 3 rounds of drinking, the woman still had a shocked expression on her face. He rubbed Brian's face vigorously. He actually transformed from a weathered 60-year-old man to a younger one. Even his skin looked better than his own. And that old man smell he used to have is gone without a trace. Her immediate response was, "How did you die? I want to try it too. This way I can also die and be reborn, becoming adored by thousands of young men." Originally, the woman is an old acquaintance of Brian's. Her name is Melissa. She's here to find him because she wants to get her hands on the Storm's Eye at the Glory Club. They have already issued a wanted notice for him. He must grasp the group's information at the first opportunity. The prerequisite for accessing the Storm's Eye is to become one of the killers in the Glory group. So he needs Melissa's help. and she originally thought it was nothing but a groundless statement. She who couldn't see suddenly had a moment of enlightenment. You need to know that the elders in the group now have all been driven out by the newly appointed young master. The newly promoted young man has no idea what Brian looked like when he was young. So entering the organization with your current appearance seems to work. At that time, you will be able to infiltrate the eye of the storm and obtain all the internal intelligence of the organization. Then you can start to undermine from within. But the most important point is that all the killers in the Glory Club must come from the Glory Orphanage. Even though old Brian is a person who came out of there, now he looks like an outsider. Can't get into the Glory Killer team at all. However, Brian smiled slightly. There is another way. That is to enter the Sacred Glory High School. It is a private school established by the Glory Foundation. On the surface, it is an ordinary school. In reality, behind the scenes, it is an organization that trains assassins. There is even a class for assassins established there. And he himself is going to enter this school. Here, he will gain the recognition of the assassin class. Thus, he will successfully infiltrate the group's inner circle. A 60-year-old boy's first day of school. He turned out to be in front of all the teachers and students in the school. He loudly proclaimed himself to be a ruthless killer. And the reason he did this was to get the attention of the school's senior leadership. But the first group he attracted was not the senior leadership. It was the school's school bully. The reason is that it was his first day at school. He caught the attention of all the girls in the school. He even won the heart of the school flower, Amy. The school bully said he really loves her to death. He borrowed 30 million yuan to pursue Amy. He bought countless gifts and frequented various high-end venues. Just a month after they started dating, when Amy was about to become his girlfriend, Brian suddenly appeared, causing everything to change. And school bully must be taught a lesson. This ignorant guy who doesn't know his own limits. He punched Brian. But the intent to kill emanated from his entire body. He even felt like he was about to ascend to heaven. At this moment, the school bully was scared to the point of collapsing on the ground. The classmates nearby did not dare to make a sound. At this moment, the headmaster ran over. He pinched Brian's cheeks and whispered, "Little rascal. You dare to fight and cause trouble right in front of me. Come here. Today, you are punished to clean up the place." When they left here, the girl who went to the bookstore to buy books at that time, she also happened to be at this school. She looked shocked. How could this person be here? The scene shifted, and it was already lunchtime. Brian found the girl. Only after asking did he find out. She said she didn't have much appetite. She just wanted to eat quietly by herself. But Brian is looking at that full large bowl. Does that mean he has no appetite? It's true that only by eating a lot can one grow big. Although she was very reluctant to talk to Brian, at least he spared himself. Originally, after Brian dealt with Octopus Man, he chose not to kill her. Instead, he let her go with a way out. The condition was for her to tell the organization that it was actually this old man who did these things. But she didn't understand that she had already kept her promise. Why did he still come to find her? But Brian said, "I didn't come to find you on purpose. It just happened to be a coincidence." "That's fortunate as well. Can I trust you?" Natalie. Natalie, who heard this, was stunned. How could he know her real name? After coming to her senses, she realized that Brian had already left. Next, Brian's performance at school was extremely outstanding. The person is acclaimed as the Bolt of Glory High School. He was left far behind by his easygoing attitude. When testing the student's vision, his eyes surprisingly reached 8.0. The teacher in the cooking class reminded him to be careful. Don't cut himself. But for him, he started learning how to use a knife at the age of 10. Carving an apple for him is simply easy. At the same time, the headmaster was loudly rebuking 3 students. The reason is that they did not clean properly. They were even smoking here. But they completely disregarded the authority of the teacher. They even pushed him to the ground. They claimed that their father was a local tycoon. If he didn't want his teacher's license revoked, he should mind his own business. Just then, Brian came out to take out the trash and saw this scene. He then approached to stop their actions. But one of them showed an indifferent expression. He spat on Brian and warned him to leave if he didn't want to get beaten up. It should be noted that Brian used to be a teacher for some time. This disrespectful behavior could be seen as touching a nerve for him. Seeing Brian's expression, the student waved his arms and attacked him. But who would have known that the next second, he was the one lying on the ground? After a simple scuffle, the three of them were completely defeated. They all knelt down, begging for mercy, and then immediately fled. They even forgot that they had dropped their phones. However, the vice principal's kick was easily blocked by Brian. But he showed a satisfied smile. The originally weak teacher unexpectedly revealed a body full of muscles. Originally, he is the killer coach of the Glory Club. During this time, he has been observing Brian's performance. During physical education class. During the vision test. During the cooking class. Even he just fought against those few people. He found that not even the coffee on his hand flowed outside the paper cup. In all of this, Brian showed amazing fighting talent. The teacher thought he was a very promising transfer student and asked if he would like to join the volunteer club. Brian's face lit up with a smile. Of course, he would like to join. He wanted to join the assassin team more than anyone else. He wanted revenge. He wanted to reclaim everything that belonged to him. After dark, the teacher asked Brian to stay, because he wanted to take him somewhere. A class hidden within this school. A class that cultivates future assassins. Brian, using the alias Jim, infiltrated the enemy's ranks. However, this action brought the dissatisfaction of the killer duo, Ghost Hand Duo. One of them is known for his speed, Caleb. The other one is Lucas, who prioritizes strength. They are both graduates of the 58th term of Glory Orphanage. They believe that those who did not come from an orphanage are not qualified to enter this class. Killer Coach is also helpless. Let's just have a welcoming ceremony. But Brian feels very speechless. He was the first to graduate from the program. Do you understand respecting the old and loving the young? Natalie immediately stepped in to mediate. She hopes everyone can get along peacefully. But Lucas pushed her away, telling her not to meddle. Natalie, however, had experienced how formidable this person was. She wanted to save a life. Since you don't want it, you can wait to die. Then the two of them immediately rushed up. Facing their attack, Brian appeared to be at ease. They said that this place is not a leisure spot for children to play house. This is to become a top assassin in the world. And that person is actually. He is the first disciple, Brian. The three of them instantly distanced themselves. Brian also seems to have regained his energy. Although proclaiming oneself as a god in their hearts feels great, when two people each come forward with a sentence, it's truly something else. It is indeed quite troublesome. Both of you can come at me together. Let's settle this quickly. Caleb and Lucas were instantly furious, feeling humiliated like never before. They immediately lunged at him. It took only 2.5 minutes. The two of them were out of breath, but Brian still gave them a thumbs up. After the end, he was about to leave when he was stopped by a loud noise. It turned out to be Natalie. She asked Brian if he looked down on this group of assassins. Brian looked puzzled, wondering what she was talking about. It turns out, Natalie has been observing all along. At that time, when fighting against Caleb and Lucas, the strength of these two is obviously not bad. But you didn't even use any force in your punches. They were even hollow in the middle. They were not lacking in physical strength to begin with, but you made them sweat all over in mockery. And you didn't even break a sweat. What is your purpose for coming here? What exactly do you want to do? It's suspicious that you're here at this school. Why hide your abilities? Are you trying to make money out of this? But Brian knows in his heart. He can't tell her so much now. The more you know, the more dangerous it is. So, he can only pretend to be ignorant. And then he sneaks away. This makes Natalie even more confused, but she is helpless. The next day, Killer Coach received an urgent task. Commissioned by U Group's CEO, Russell, who is one of Glory Group's biggest sponsors. The reason is due to several recent cases of teenagers being kidnapped. One of the kidnapped children is the chairman's only son. The mission is to rescue his son and eliminate everyone involved in this incident. But one of the girls asked, "Why didn't he report it to the police?" The reason is that Russell wants to let everyone know that those who dare to threaten him through kidnapping deserve to die. And Russell will write a letter to Glory's superiors about the person who can complete the task excellently. That person can directly obtain the volunteer certificate for the killer team. Under his recommendation, that person doesn't have to stay in this school for 2.5 years. He can become a real killer immediately. Upon hearing this, Brian became interested. He immediately raised his hand to signal that he wanted to go. What Brian didn't expect was that Natalie had the same idea. There's also Caleb and Lucas. The teacher assigned them to investigate the amusement park the next day. The main task this time is to ensure the safety of the chairman's son and to assassinate the mastermind behind the whole thing. They didn't first investigate the target's whereabouts. Instead, they ran to play on the merry-go-round. The horse cried, and the kids next to it were confused. They then ran to play bumper cars with the other children, drifting, braking abruptly, and turning smoothly in one go. And Brian and Natalie were no exception. Children all know that. Those are some air guns with problems. The unscrupulous boss thought he could make a big profit. But what he didn't know was that they were trained by a killer group since they were young. This is just child's play to them. They returned in triumph. The first time I have encountered so much fun. The Ghost Hand duo have long forgotten their past unhappiness. But only Brian knows. This may be their first time going to the amusement park. To know that they have been through various devil-like training since childhood. Their childhood is probably similar to their own. They don't even know what a happy thing is. Only endless training day and night.